I never expected a 3 a.m. notification to change the course of my life. My phone buzzed on the cluttered desk, and I froze. You left the track unedited. Again. I stared at the screen. Not a friend. Not a classmate. Him. The voice behind every late-night playlist I'd obsessively replayed. The anonymous singer whose melodies had wormed their way into my chest and refused to leave. I shouldn't have been thrilled. I should have felt cautious. Instead, my heart picked up speed, and I could swear I heard it drumming in sync with the faint hum of the old dorm heater. I typed back, I didn't realize. Sorry. My fingers hovered, trembling, over the keyboard. Hours later, I was at the studio, headphones around my neck, pretending to focus on the piano keys. The dorm was quiet, the hallway dark, and then I heard a low, familiar hum of him singing softly, just feet away. My breath hitched. You're still here? He asked, voice teasing but not harsh. It was strange hearing him live, not through speakers, not through headphones real and tangible. I needed to finish the track. I murmured, heart hammering. Always perfectionist, he said, stepping closer. The scent of mint and something indefinably warm wrapping around me. I swallowed hard. The music app voice, the one I'd replayed hundreds of times in secret, was inches away, and yet the same thrilling distance from reality that made my stomach twist. I remembered the first time I'd stumbled across his tracks. His lyrics were raw but gentle, full of longing and humor, sprinkled with the kind of vulnerability that made me ache. I downloaded every song, analyzed every note, stayed awake just to catch the brief online window when he dropped new recordings. And now, here he was, leaning casually against the mixer, smirking like he already knew I'd been obsessed. You've been listening to me, he said softly, a faint chuckle tugging at the corner of his lips. I froze, eyes wide. Not obsessively, I said, voice cracking slightly, and immediately wished I could retract it. His smile widened. Cute, he muttered, and the single word felt like a spark in the stillness of the studio. Then he did something that made my chest constrict. He leaned closer, just close enough that the air between us seemed electric. My hands itched to reach out, to touch the familiar warmth I'd only imagined for months. I didn't think you'd ever. I started, but he cut me off with a teasing shake of his head. Ever what? No? Hear me? Care? His eyes glimmered in the dim light. You've been humming my songs all along. I've noticed. I laughed nervously, because what else could I do? Laughing was safer than the words I couldn't say, the way my heart threatened to betray me with every beat. You hum them? He asked, arching an eyebrow, and I felt my face burn. I nodded mutely, too shy to elaborate, too enamored to hide the truth. He didn't comment further, just adjusted the mic, letting a few notes drift into the air. Then, almost imperceptibly, he moved closer, brushing past me as he leaned to adjust the soundboard. The contact was fleeting but undeniable. A shiver raced down my spine, one I couldn't explain with music or nerves. I told myself it was just proximity. It had to be. He was professional. I was me, a hopeless fan in his presence. But then he sang, low and teasing, the words curling around me like a secret promise. You're the only one who really gets it. Me. My hands trembled, and I swallowed hard, trying to remember to breathe. I've been listening for months, I admitted, the truth tasting like both relief and fear. His laugh was soft, almost like a caress. I hoped you would. I hoped someone would hear what I actually mean when I sing. His eyes, deep and unreadable, locked on mine, and I felt exposed, yet strangely safe. Minitzer was it hours? Passed with us leaning over the piano, the space between us shrinking imperceptibly. His hand brushed mine once, and I froze, the contact sending a jolt through me that felt almost sacred. He looked down at our hands, then back up, and smiled, a mix of mischief and something gentler, something tender. Do you want to try the chorus together? He asked, voice low. The suggestion was innocent enough on the surface, but every syllable dripped with meaning. I Okay, I whispered, my voice barely audible over the soft hum of the late-night heater. And then we sang, two voices merging into one, harmonizing perfectly, not because we planned it, but because somehow, unknowingly, we had always been aligned. The studio walls seemed to shrink around us, enclosing only our laughter, our quiet admissions, and the music that had brought us here. Halfway through the track, he leaned closer, almost conspiratorially. You know, he murmured, you hum better than anyone I've ever known. You make my songs feel alive. My stomach twisted. Alive. That's exactly how I'd felt. Alone in my room, headphones clamped to my ears, replaying him over and over. And now he was saying it to me, here, inches away, his warm breath brushing my ear. Maybe we could record something together? I suggested tentatively, my heart threatening to escape my chest. His grin was sly, full of that quiet confidence that made me melt. Maybe we could, if you're brave enough to step into the mic with me. I swallowed and nodded. Brave. That's what I was now, standing in the studio at 3 a.m. with the voice that haunted my dreams, feeling something more than just admiration, something dangerously like desire. And then, without warning, he reached out, brushing a stray strand of hair from my face. The contact was fleeting, gentle, intimate. My fingers twitched toward his hand, aching for more. He didn't pull away. Instead, he lingered just long enough to make my pulse spike, then stepped back, letting the teasing spark hang in the air between us. You're distracting, he whispered, half laughing. Maybe I'll have to record this track all night just to keep you near. I laughed too, a shaky, breathless sound that carried more truth than either of us could say outright. Hours blurred into melody and quiet confessions. The studio became our small world, cocooned in late-night magic, our voices intertwining, our laughs echoing softly against the walls. And in that space, at that impossible hour, I realized something. I didn't just love his voice. I loved him, and maybe, just maybe, he loved me too. By the time the first light of dawn crept into the studio, I was no longer just a fan. I was part of something fragile, electric, and undeniably real. And as he leaned closer, brushing my shoulder with the gentlest of touches, I let myself believe in what we could be. Because at 3 a.m., in the glow of studio lights, with the music as our witness, the anonymous voice that had captivated my heart became something far more intimate, far more alive. The next few days were a blur of stolen glances and quiet anticipation. Every time I walked past the studio, I felt that magnetic pull, a mixture of fear and longing. He was there, headphones around his neck, notebook in hand, eyes lighting up the second they found me. And I knew, without a doubt, that the fascination I had harbored from afar had shifted into something undeniably tangible. One night, as the dorm emptied and the hallways grew silent, he appeared in the doorway of the studio, an easy smirk tugging at his lips. You're late, he teased, though the corners of his eyes crinkled in genuine amusement. I had homework, I mumbled, though we both knew the lie was flimsy. He leaned against the frame, hands tucked casually in his pockets. Homework or not, you're here. That's what matters. The warmth in his tone wrapped around me, a quiet reassurance that melted my nervousness. I stepped inside, and immediately the familiar scent of the studio enveloped me: coffee, old wood, and the faint trace of his cologne. My chest tightened with anticipation. He moved closer, lowering his voice to a whisper that made my ears tingle. You know, I've been thinking about last night. I tried to respond, but my voice failed me, swallowed by the fluttering chaos of my heart. He chuckled softly, as if reading my mind, and reached out, brushing a strand of hair from my forehead again. This time I didn't flinch. I let his hand linger, the contact electrifying in its gentle intimacy. Do you want to try something? He asked, eyes glinting with mischief and warmth. Like? I whispered, breathless. Like singing together, really together. No hiding behind screens or apps. Just us. His voice was soft, yet insistent, a quiet command that made my pulse race. I nodded, barely able to contain the excitement bubbling inside me. We sat side by side at the piano, shoulders brushing, hearts hammering in sync. And then, without a word, we began. Our voices intertwined, harmonizing effortlessly, building layers of sound that seemed to echo every unspoken thought, every hidden longing we'd both carried. At one point, he stopped and looked at me, eyes searching, vulnerable. "You've changed the way I sing." I didn't realize how much I wanted someone to hear me like this. Really hear me. I reached for his hand, and this time he didn't hesitate. Our fingers intertwined naturally, like they had always belonged together. "I've always listened," I said softly. "Not just to your music, but to you." His smile was slow, tender, and it made my heart ache in the best way. "I think I've been waiting for you to say that." The studio grew quiet, save for the faint hum of the equipment and the distant murmur of the city outside. We leaned in, close enough that our foreheads touched, breaths mingling, the warmth between us undeniable. The teasing, electric tension of before had deepened into something more intimate, more real. "Are you okay with this?" he whispered, his voice a trembling mixture of hope and uncertainty. "I've never been more sure of anything," I replied, feeling a weight lift from my chest. Then, finally, he closed the distance, pressing his lips gently to mine. It wasn't hurried or clumsy, it was careful, reverent, full of the promise that had been building in stolen glances and late-night rehearsals. I responded instinctively, letting myself melt into him, letting the music and the moment carry us beyond fear or hesitation. When we pulled back, just enough to breathe, he rested his forehead against mine again, smiling softly. "You know," he murmured, "I think this is the start of something incredible." I laughed quietly, a light, euphoric sound that echoed in the small room. "I think you're right." From that night on, the studio became our sanctuary. We stayed late, singing and laughing, sharing secrets and dreams, letting the music draw us closer with every note. Our connection deepened, delicate but unbreakable, as we discovered the joy of being seen and accepted completely by someone who had once been a distant voice in the night. Weeks later, when we finally released our first track together, I watched him from across the studio, smiling and brushing his hair back from his forehead as he adjusted the mic. I realized then that my obsession with a voice had blossomed into love for the person behind it, a love that was tender, exhilarating, and completely mutual. And in the quiet aftermath of the recording, as the first rays of dawn filtered through the blinds, he whispered my name again. This time, it wasn't a teasing call or a distant echo through headphones. It was intimate, full of warmth and promise. "I've been waiting for this," he said softly, holding my hand in both of his. "So have I," I replied, my heart full. We stayed there, hands entwined, voices blending in soft laughter and quiet song, knowing that whatever the future held, we had found something real, something lasting, something that would never be anonymous again. At 3 a.m., in a small dorm studio, the anonymous voice that once haunted my playlists became the person I couldn't imagine my life without. And that was the beginning of everything. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.